Well, does Elden Ring need a pause button? And then Alanah Pearce, a creative director at Sony Santa Monica, asked for one. That's what YouTuber Figana Plays said that she had mentioned in a tweet saying, quote, Elden Ring needs to be easier because I have kids. Do you think she's the type of chick to park in a handicap zone because she thinks having kids is a disability? Now, the opinion and the responses to it is based off of a 26-second clip of a much longer video in which he posted to Twitter. Let's hear the clip first of what led to this response.
Is concerned. There are long-term disabilities, there are situational disabilities, there are temporary disabilities. It counts as a disability where a video game like Elden Ring is concerned if you have a kid. You have a 2-year-old, you're trying to play Elden Ring, you can't pause. That is a situational disability that you have, where the game not having the option for you to be able to pause, for example, is a hindrance for your particular disability. Now,
the clip has led to some people like Eric Kane responding with this quote, play when you don't have to watch the 2-year-old or deal with it. You know there's no pause button going in. Find a safe spot and log out if you need to pause. And finally, quit demanding change for your convenience when the game is just fine the way it is. Need change. Another YouTuber, That Star Wars Girl, had a bit more of a harsher take on this, saying this is one of the dumbest things I have ever watched. Maybe spend time with your kid while they're awake instead of playing video games. You can always play when they're asleep, but claiming your child is a disability is absolute effing BS. Now, Alanah Pearce had responded initially to those initial responses by this, saying, quote, having a kid can be a situational disability where accessibility is concerned. If you need to pause a game because your kid is running around your living room but you can't, you'll have trouble playing games with no pause menu. Here's a bunch of info about it for anyone who's generally interested and not just trying to rage bait. And she links to a userway.org blog in which they say, quote, situational disabilities are temporary and based on a specific set of circumstances. Examples include broken limbs, environments that inhibit the senses, as in a loud music venue, and surgery recovery. She goes on to state that every few days I wonder why I try to teach anyone anything on the internet, but yes, in software and game development, situational disability is a term that refers to any non-permanent situation that would prevent someone from progressing. Accessibility aims to alleviate that. Now, this did get some people to defend her, including Mudatar, who said she's asking for a pause button, not the wildest thing to implement. Also, as a PC gamer who had to pause during Elden Ring, here's a pro tip: go to the task manager and just pause the process. With another one who was responding to Mudatar saying, or inventory to help to menu explanation equals pause. She had also retweeted a few other people, one saying it only takes a few seconds to Google the term Alanah is using. It is a thing. You can not like it, but that alone won't change anything, which is good because situational disabilities can lead to tools that can help everyone. And another one stating all of this: I often use the baby analogy when describing situational accessibility. A similar analogy to Alanah's is if you just had a baby and they finally get to sleep, so you have some time to get around the two in on Fortnite. Turning on the audio wheel means you can play with the sound down or muted so you don't wake the baby, still be able to play. The audio wheel was designed for deaf/hard of hearing players, but it has other accessibility uses beyond just for disabled players only. Now, it's interesting to note that Alanah did not mention Figana, or maybe not was aware that he had clipped a 20-second snippet of a 17.5-minute video called Elden Ring DLC is too hard, it's not. Now, while we cannot play the full video of what she had said about Elden Ring DLC is hard, which is in response to the latest DLC, of course, of Elden Ring, Shadow of the Erd Tree, and some people are saying that it had ramped up difficulty and is becoming way too difficult for some people to finish because of artificial difficulty. But we can play more of that particular video, including the context in which that quote was residing within, including her saying that they are not asking for an easy mode.
I have never understood why players would ever argue against more customization options. So this is the second half of this video, where I'm going to talk specifically about accessibility and even just a lot of people really not understanding the conversation about accessibility and Elden. When people are asking for accessibility, are not actually asking for an easy mode. That isn't the intent. There are also multiple kinds of disabilities, especially where gaming is concerned. There are long-term disabilities, there are situational disabilities, there are temporary disabilities. It counts as a disability where a video game like Elden Ring is concerned if you have a kid. You have a 2-year-old, you're trying to play Elden Ring, you can't pause. It is a situational disability that you have, where the game not having the option for you to be able to pause, for example, is a hindrance for your particular disability, a situational disability. You may need to pause to stop your kid from putting a fork into a socket, a power outlet. For any of those people who do not have accessibility-specific issues, you just gotta explore more, dude. You can do it. You can do it. I think you're being impatient. I think you can do it. And to the accessibility conversation that comes up every single time FromSoft has a new game, I would love to see them have more accessibility options. I would not like to see them make the games easier or less challenging. And it's a difficult balance to strike, obviously, but I feel like I found kind of a...
Now that you got the full context, including the end of the video where she's not asking for easy mode and she's actually saying for those people who are just asking it to be easier because they can't handle the difficulty to explore more, quote unquote. I have to say, first of all, it's really disingenuous if it was intended to be taken out of context, if Fagata was trying to do that, and I don't think that he would try to do something like that, but not having the full picture, not having the full context of what she was actually saying was a bit insulting to this conversation, because we deserve to have the full context. We deserve to have the full conversation of what she was trying to get at, which was the idea of more customization options, and she was citing examples of types of disabilities that people would have, and she was citing examples of those disabilities. I didn't know anything about the situational disability aspect until she brought it up. Now, the 20-second clip doesn't even go into her example of a emergency situation, and I believe that most of the people who were responding on Twitter were responding to Fagata's tweet were only basing it off of the 20-second clip and not the full 17.5-minute video in which it was based upon. If they were basing it upon the full video, then they should probably bring that up. And yes, this is one of those times when X should put a community note on that tweet to make people aware that it is taking the quote out of context in a form or fashion, and I will implore people like Eric Kane in order to watch a full video before they make their opinions, because it seems like this was completely taken out of context here, and I don't think they mean to do it. I just think that maybe in this sort of instance we do need to have a bit of a pause, no pun intended. And also, this is one of the 2 times out of a day the broken clock known as a source was correct on this. But yeah, let's get to this conversation about pause buttons. And I remember owning an Atari 7800. Yes, I did own one of those back in the day when I was really young. There was a pause button on that machine. And would you believe that you actually had to get up off of your seat, go over to the system and hit the pause button? It was located right next to the power button. That was one of the first times I got introduced to a pause button in the game. Atari 2600 did not have that. You didn't need it for that system, obviously, because it was like 10-minute sessions per game. However, now we're in a timeline where you have a game that will take you hours upon hours, days upon days to complete, and thus now we take the pause button for granted. And when a game like Elden Ring does not include that, people get taken aback a little bit. Now, people were getting on her about this whole situational disability, and yeah, I kind of get that, because hey, we all have times when something comes up unexpectedly. I mean, you can't really plan for every single little detail that could come up, even if you put the kid to bed, or people you are caring for, or something that just comes up unexpectedly, and you have to unexpectedly step away from the computer or the television screen in order to deal with the situation. Or is a situation that has come up for me, it's more of a technical situation where you find that for a few seconds the HDMI signal goes out for a few seconds because the TV has to reacquire it. And if you have a setup like I do, which the systems are going to a switcher, to a splitter, and then back to the TV/capture card, you tend to not know which one is creating the problem, and you have to go through all of that in order to reestablish the signal. Usually it's my PS5 for some weird reason. No other system is doing that to me, which narrows it down a little bit, but which cable is doing what? I have like several HDMI cables doing several different things. And if you have that situation, the entire screen goes black for a few seconds, and I have to hit pause in order to make sure that nothing unexpected happens while I'm trying to reestablish the picture, which takes a few seconds, and then we're fine. And it picks and chooses when it happens. There's no real way to determine, hey, it's going to do it at this point in time or that point in time. You just have to grin and bear it until it comes back. Those types of technical issues can come come up. Maybe your computer just decided it didn't want to send you a signal to your monitor. Things like that can come up. Now, I don't know if you would call them disabilities, maybe more of a situational emergency, maybe a better wording for this, to where you have to suddenly step away from the computer or step away from the monitor or step away from the TV, as I said. But yeah, situational emergencies might be a better wording for this, as disabilities puts a bit of a different meaning to it, where you're equating a situational emergency like that to maybe blindness or an issue where you're hard of hearing, or maybe photosensitivity where certain flashing lights can cause you to have issues, and maybe you are worried about a particular game to cause you to go into seizures or something like that. We've had that happen before with Cyberpunk 2077. I'm not sure if anyone has ever told us whether or not that whole situation was fixed, or if there is a risk that's unique to that game that was not present in some other games. And that's what Alanah was getting to, the idea that these types of things could be implemented into games for people who have these types of situational issues. Now, as for the pause button debate in general, I disagree with Eric Kane saying that there's no debate to be had here, because you tend to run into another issue that the pause button, or lack thereof, can mask, which is the lack of any organic difficulty. By that I mean things that would trust your skills that you've learned throughout the course of the game. Or is it more of a test of patience, more of padding, more of artificial difficulty? Now, no one's really complaining about Elden Ring as a whole, because of course Elden Ring is probably one of the best selling games of all time. It was a huge hit and people do like that DLC despite the difficulty that it has, and From Software is known to make things extremely difficult, but it also is in a way that tests your skill rather than your patience. And unlike the Dark Souls series, in which there was an always on online mechanic, that doesn't seem to be the case with Elden Ring, which begs the question, why did From Somewhere feel the need to disclude a pause button here? And of course, whenever you ask for something like this, the elitists, the hardcore people, decide they want to have a field day about it, because hey, they had to do it this way too, so why shouldn't the people that are coming into the series for the first time, which Elden Ring is a part of the Dark Souls series, as I think it is, they should have to go through the same aspect. But at the same time, you have to think, hey, if they did add this quality of life feature, I would not complain about it. Would you really complain about it if they did add one? You don't have to use it. It doesn't keep you from enjoying your experience with the game. What are you worried about? What are you concerned about? People who are not as good as you are, or you claim to be, to play alongside you, or maybe people who you can see as quote-unquote tourists go and play the game and then change the game into what they want it to be. I don't think this is the same thing as wanting an easy mode. Jim's definitely certainly wanted an easy mode, and I don't think that they were joking about that. This is not the same thing, and Alanah did a great job, I think, in trying to separate those two ideas, and that's why you needed the full context of what she was saying there. And more to the point, if there is a way to stop the game and to have it not progress any further until you do whatever it is you need to do, but has more steps to do it, then what's the point of discluding it if you just have to go through more steps in order to have that happen? Unless, of course, From Software did not intend for that to happen and they eliminate that aspect and they fix it to where you can't do it that way either. Or they fix it to where even Mudadar's way of doing it doesn't work anymore. Now, if they're actively trying to make sure you don't have any way to pause the game, they're trying to patch out any ways they find, that may be a different scenario. But if they're just saying, hey, do this and this and this and this, and then you can pause the game, then why not just have a button to do that, or a macro to do that altogether with one particular button? That makes no sense. To have it be a complete jumping through hoops in order to do it, to have the same result. And thus, she does have a pause button, and thus, there's no real reason for either side to really complain about it. And yes, there are mods for the PC version, and I would hate to have to advertise Nexus mods, because that can be a rabbit hole we can go down with how they treat certain mods. However, there is a mod called Pause the Game. I will link to it in the description below this video, or in the pinned comment section below of this video, provided I can find a place where it is listed that is not Nexus mods. I don't want to advertise them, but if I have no choice, then there you go. But yeah, there is a mod, at least for the PC version, to where it will let you pause the game. Now, keep in mind, there is the easy anti-cheat that Elden Ring does use, and that goes into the one aspect and the one form of game that might change this conversation, which is MMOs. And in that sense, you do have the bonfire in the Dark Souls series, including Elden Ring. You have sanctuary cities like you see in MMOs like WoW and Final Fantasy XIV, where not only can you log out without needing the 20-second runoff, for lack of a better phrase to describe it, but when you log back into the game, you're treated with a bonus of rested XP, where you're getting more XP per kill or per quest pursuant to how long you were resting, which makes it into more of an incentive. So that would be a different scenario because you're only having control of your character, not anybody else's character. But you do want to be careful that if you're a developer and saying, I don't want a pause button in my game, that you're not masking the lack of any organic difficulty, which I don't think Elden Ring is one of those games that needs to hide their organic difficulty. However, it is adding difficulty to where you don't really need it. And I can see both sides of this. I can see where they're coming from. I can see where Alanah's coming from. I can see where the other side's coming from. However, it is just the fact that Alanah was taken a little bit out of context here, which gives me a little bit of, no pun intended, pause. I would say to watch the full video and then make your opinions known based on that and to understand what she is actually saying there. I do agree that there should be more customization for those people that are dealing with certain situations. Situational emergencies might be a better term for it, and you want to be careful about artificial difficulty and that being a way to pad difficulty where it was not needed. And you can pause the game in a workaround way anyway, so why is this a thing that people want to fight over? I don't understand it. And the way X is anymore, where even I'm getting a little tired of it. I'm getting a little tired of people making everything into this super serious issue. This should not be the hill that people on the get good side are going to die on. This shouldn't be the hill that they stand on. This shouldn't be the mountain that they guard. Unless it is a multiplayer game through and through, then especially when there are workarounds in order to effectively pause the game the way that Alanah is mentioning this, then all she's asking for is a one button macro, and I don't think that's too much to ask here. But I do want to know what you guys think. I do want to know your feelings about this topic. There's some misreaction to what she was saying there, and I can see where both sides might be coming from on that subject. You don't want to dumb down the game, and I don't think she was asking for that. She was claiming she didn't ask for that, so there you go. But I want to know what you guys think. Please leave a comment down below. This is going to be an interesting discussion, I hope. Please be civil about this though, and don't try to disparage anyone else for disagreeing with you. That does not mean they hate you as a person. That just means that they like to have a debate about that. Do you think there should be a pause button? Do you think that this is a quote-unquote disability? What do you guys think? I'd love to hear. Please leave a comment down below. Don't forget to subscribe and ring the bell for more videos. Until next time, to be continued.